The shuttle rattled like it was trying to shake itself apart, a constant metal groan that made Kalen tighten the straps on his harness. He didn't mind turbulence. He'd seen worse. But it was hard to look calm when the alien woman across from him was watching him like she was calculating how quickly he would be vaporized if the hull split open. Her name was Vera, and Kalen had never seen anything quite like her. She looked human enough, 2 arms, 2 legs, a gaze that could cut through steel, but those long, elegant ears tilted upward like the wings of some exotic bird, and every time she flicked them in irritation, Kalen caught himself staring. Not that he wanted to, it was just distracting, too distracting. He told himself a dozen times to stop doing it, but every time she glanced his way, his brain froze and his eyes stayed locked on her until it was too late. Now she sat there, hands folded on her lap, staring at him like he'd committed some terrible intergalactic offense. The silence was killing him, but Kalen was not brave enough to start a conversation that would likely end with her stabbing him with that plasma dagger she kept strapped to her thigh. The shuttle lurched again, throwing one of their teammates, a wiry mechanic named Roft, face first into the bulkhead. "Stars and scrap metal," Roft muttered, rubbing his forehead. Whose idea was it to fly this death box straight through a gravity storm? Oh wait, it was Command S, genius as always. "Complaining won't stop the storm," Vera said, her voice calm but laced with a faintly amused tone. Her ears twitched slightly as if tuning into some frequency only she could hear. "Though if you shout any louder, Roft, the star outside might implode just to silence you." Kalen almost smiled, almost. But then she caught him watching her again, and her eyebrows furrowed like she was trying to figure out if humans had some kind of staring problem. He quickly looked down at his boots, suddenly very interested in a scuff mark on the left toe. "Why do you keep doing that?" Vera's voice cut through the rattling cabin. Kalen froze. "Doing what?" "Looking at me," she said, tilting her head slightly, ears angling forward in what Kalen assumed was the alien equivalent of suspicion. "You've been doing it since we boarded this shuttle. Either humans have an unhealthy fixation with ears or you're plotting something. Which is it?" The rest of the team chuckled. Roft snorted so hard he nearly choked on his water pack. Kalen's ears went hot and he stammered, I wasn't plotting anything, all right. I was just, he glanced around desperately, searching for an excuse that didn't sound ridiculous. "I was making sure you were, getting space sick." Vera raised an eyebrow and one corner of her lips quirked upward. "Space sick?" "Yeah," Kalen said, nodding furiously. "It's a human thing. We look at each other to, check for signs of nausea. Very important, survival thing." "Is that so?" Vera leaned back, her gaze narrowing with mock seriousness. "Then I must look incredibly nauseous, because you've been staring for a long time." The cabin erupted with laughter. Even the stoic pilot, Captain Dren, smirked at Kalen through the reflection in the cockpit window. Kalen groaned and rubbed his face, wishing the shuttle would just implode and save him from this embarrassment. Before he could think of a comeback, the shuttle's alarm wailed. A voice from the automated system chimed, "Warning. Gravitational anomaly detected. Please remain seated or prepare to be violently flattened." "Well, that's reassuring," Roft muttered. The shuttle tilted sharply, sending Kalen's stomach lurching. He grabbed the nearest support bar just as a streak of plasma lightning lit up the viewport, illuminating the research station ahead. It was massive but broken, like a skeleton floating in space. Its outer rings shattered, its core structure sparking intermittently. The station looked like it had been abandoned for decades, yet the scanners indicated power surges deep inside. "Lovely vacation spot," Roft said, strapping himself in tighter. "All it's missing is a welcome please die sign." "Stay focused," Dren barked, guiding the shuttle through the last stretch of turbulence. "We're here to investigate the distress signal and secure the station. Try not to get yourselves killed before we even land." The shuttle's landing struts slammed against the docking platform, and the whole crew exhaled as if they'd been holding their breath for hours. Kalen stood, adjusting his rifle strap, and tried not to look at Vera. It didn't work. She caught him glancing again, and her smirk deepened. "If I didn't know better," she said softly as she passed him, "I'd think you were waiting for me to grow another ear." Kalen blinked. "Is that possible?" "No," she said, laughing as she stepped through the hatch. The station's interior was worse than its exterior, dark, dripping with condensation, and filled with the low hum of dying machinery. Lights flickered on as their suits synced with the local power grid, casting eerie shadows across the walls. Kalen kept close to Vera, both because she was a skilled scout and because, well, he couldn't seem to help himself. As they advanced deeper, Roft muttered, "This place gives me the creeps. If something jumps out of the shadows, I'm shooting first and apologizing later." "Apologizing to what? The walls," Kalen said, trying to sound casual. To his relief, Vera chuckled quietly. When they reached a sealed corridor, Vera knelt beside the console, her long fingers moving with inhuman precision as she rerouted power. Kalen watched the way her ears tilted slightly when she concentrated, twitching like they were listening to the wires beneath the metal. He realized, too late, that he was staring again. "Human," she said without looking up, "you're doing it again." "I wasn't," he started, then sighed. "Okay, I was, but it's just, I've never seen anyone hack a console with their ears listening in." She laughed, shaking her head. "We do hack with ears, but nice try." The corridor doors hissed open, and a blast of cold air rushed out. The smell of ozone filled the space, and somewhere far inside the station, something clanged. The team exchanged wary glances, but Kalen just followed Vera, rifle ready, heart pounding. He wasn't sure if it was the station's eerie silence that made him nervous, or the fact that he couldn't stop looking at her, no matter how hard he tried. The corridor stretched ahead like the throat of some massive beast, metallic ribs arching overhead and lights flickering, as if the station itself were struggling to stay awake. Kalen moved cautiously, scanning each shadow with his rifle's scope, though he kept stealing glances at Vera walking just a step ahead. Her movements were fluid, almost feline, as if her feet made no sound on the metal floor. He found himself wondering if her ears really could pick up danger before it arrived. That would certainly explain why she kept swiveling them around like radar dishes. "Human," she said without turning her head, "if you're going to keep staring, at least do something useful, like cover the rear." Kalen flushed and adjusted his grip on the rifle. "I wasn't staring, I was observing, totally different thing. Very tactical, I'm practically a surveillance camera." Roft snickered from behind them. "Yeah, a surveillance camera with a crush." Kalen shot him a glare. "Shut up, Roft." Vera's ears twitched in what Kalen suspected was amusement. "Don't tell him to shut up. He's only saying what your face already confesses." "Focus," Captain Dren interrupted, his voice as sharp as the clicking sound of his boots. "The station is running on auxiliary power, and the distress signal came from deep within the research core. Stay alert and keep the jokes to a minimum." Roft muttered, "Well, someone's fun at parties." Kalen bit back a grin. Even with the tension of this ghost station pressing down on him, the humor kept the fear from settling in too deep. He glanced at the walls, noticing faint scratches, like something had clawed at the metal. "Anyone else see these marks?" he asked. Vera stopped and crouched to examine them, her long ears tilted forward as she studied the grooves. "Not a maintenance bot," she murmured. "Too irregular, could be something alive." "Alive?" Roth stepped back, clutching his toolkit like it was a shield. "Alive as in we can talk to it, or alive as in it will chew our faces off?" "Possibly both," Vera said, straightening up with a faint smirk. "Depends on how polite you are." Kalen chuckled, but a faint chill crept down his spine. "I vote for not finding out." They pressed onward until they reached a broken observation deck overlooking the station's central reactor. The massive core pulsed faintly with blue light, like the heartbeat of a dying giant. A few drones floated around the reactor, their lights flickering erratically. One of them twitched and slammed into the wall with a loud clang, sending sparks flying. "Are they drunk?" Roft asked. "Malfunctioning," Dren corrected, raising his weapon. "But they might still attack if their systems are corrupted." As if on cue, one of the drones spun wildly and fired a low-energy bolt in their direction. Kalen ducked, and Roft let out a shriek that sounded embarrassingly high-pitched. "Cover me," Vera said, sprinting forward before anyone could argue. She moved like a streak of silver, ears flicking back as she dodged another bolt. Kalen watched, heart pounding as she slid under the drone, drove her plasma dagger upward and sliced its power core in half. The machine dropped with a hiss and a spark. Kalen ran forward, taking out a second drone with a quick burst from his rifle. "Nice move," he said breathlessly, looking at her. She tilted her head, smirking. "Are you impressed, or are you about to start staring again?" "Both," he admitted before his brain could stop him. The corner of her lips twitched as if she were trying not to smile. "You humans are strange." By the time they finished disabling the drones, the tension in the room had eased slightly, replaced by the soft hum of the reactor. Kalen leaned against the railing, catching his breath. "So, what's the plan? Do we poke around and hope nothing tries to eat us?" "That's the usual strategy," Roth said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Works about 50% of the time." Dren shot him a look. "We find the source of the signal. We don't have the luxury of waiting." Vera knelt by a nearby console, her long fingers dancing over the controls as she rerouted power. Kalen watched her ears tilt slightly, as if responding to some frequency in the station's systems. "You're doing that thing again," he said, leaning over her shoulder. "What thing?" "The ear radar thing." She gave him a sideways glance. "It's called listening, something you're not doing when I tell you to stop staring." Roft burst out laughing, nearly dropping his toolkit. Kalen groaned. "I'm not staring, I'm appreciating your technical skills." Vera raised a brow. "Appreciating. Is that what humans call it when their faces turn red?" Kalen opened his mouth to respond, but was cut off by a low, metallic groan echoing through the station. The sound was deep, vibrating through the walls like the growl of some unseen creature. The laughter stopped immediately. Roth said, his voice small. "That wasn't the station, was it?" Vera's ears twitched sharply. "No. That came from below us." Kalen tightened his grip on his rifle. "And we're going down there, aren't we?" Dren nodded grimly. "We are. Stay close, stay quiet." As they descended into the lower levels, the lights grew dimmer, the air colder. Kalen stayed close behind Vera, partly for tactical reasons and partly because he felt oddly safer near her. She glanced back once, her expression unreadable. For a moment, Kalen swore there was the faintest hint of amusement in her eyes. "Human," she whispered, "if something tries to kill us, remember to keep staring. Maybe your face will scare it away." He rolled his eyes but couldn't stop a grin from tugging at his lips. "Deal." The corridor ahead flickered with strange blue light, and a faint movement stirred in the shadows. Kalen swallowed hard. He didn't know what was waiting for them, but somehow, the alien girl's quiet laugh made it just a little less terrifying. Kalen had always hated tight spaces. Unfortunately, the collapsing maintenance shaft they were crawling through now was about as tight as it could get, with every creak of the metal making him wonder if the whole station was about to fold in on itself. Vera was just ahead of him, moving gracefully, as if this maze of broken panels and sparking cables was nothing. He tried to focus on the task, but all he could think about was how absurd it was that this was their plan: crawl through a death tunnel, because the main corridor was sealed by an energy lock that Roft accidentally triggered by pressing the wrong button. "Are you sure you know where this leads?" Kalen asked, struggling not to bump his helmet against a low-hanging pipe. "Would you like me to turn around and ask the station for a map?" Vera shot back, her tone dry. "Just keep crawling, human, and try not to think about the fact that the heat sensors are picking up life signs in the walls." Kalen froze. "Wait, what?" She laughed softly. "I'm joking." "Not funny," Kalen muttered, crawling after her anyway. Roth's voice crackled over their comms from the upper level. "Hey, quick update. Those drones you smashed. Yeah, they weren't the only ones. There are more powering up near the reactor core. You might want to hurry before they decide you're intruders." "We are intruders," Kalen pointed out. "Exactly," Roft said. "So maybe, pick up the pace before they welcome you with laser fire." "Don't rush me," Vera said calmly, squeezing through a narrow gap. "If I move too fast, I might forget you're behind me and let the panel slam shut on your helmet." Kalen frowned. "You wouldn't actually do that, would you?" She glanced back, her ears twitching with what looked suspiciously like amusement. "Depends. Are you still staring at me?" Kalen groaned. "I'm crawling, there's nowhere else to look." They reached a vertical shaft that dropped down into darkness, the faint hum of machinery echoing from below. Vera crouched, checking her scanner. "The power surge originated down there. We need to bypass the collapsed walkway." Kalen peered down the shaft. "You first, I guess." "Scared?" she asked. "No," he lied, "just being polite." She smirked and attached a magnetic grip to the wall, descending with an ease that made Kalen mutter something about show-offs. When it was his turn, he misjudged the first step, almost losing his footing. Vera caught his arm, her grip surprisingly strong for someone so lean. "Careful," she said, her voice softer. "If you fall and die, I'll have to fill out human incident reports. I hate paperwork." Kalen managed a nervous laugh. "I'll try not to make you do extra work." They reached the bottom of the shaft, finding themselves in a half-collapsed chamber filled with broken "That's 2 drones I've saved you from," she said, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "You owe me." "Fine," Kalen said. "I'll buy you a drink. Do aliens drink? What's your poison? Radioactive coolant." She smirked. "You humans and your strange courtship rituals." Kalen nearly choked. "Wait, that wasn't I didn't." "Relax," she said, laughing. "I'm teasing you." Another sudden vibration shook the floor, cutting off Kalen's retort. A deep hum reverberated from the far end of the chamber, where a massive energy conduit pulsed erratically. "That doesn't sound good," Kalen muttered. Vera scanned the conduit. "The hyperspace core is destabilizing." The scientists here were experimenting with folding space inside the reactor. "If we don't stabilize it, this station might tear itself apart." Kalen rubbed his face. "And let me guess, we're the only ones who can fix it." "You catch on quickly," she said with a grin. "Come on." As they worked to reroute the power, the ground trembled again. Something slammed against the wall from the other side, a rhythmic, heavy thud. Kalen tensed. Tell me that's just the coolant pumps." Vera's ears tilted sharply. "It's not." The wall dented inward as if something massive was pushing through. Kalen aimed his rifle, his heart hammering. "You've got to be kidding me. What now?" The wall burst open, revealing a creature that looked like a nightmare made of shimmering light and metallic shards, its shape constantly shifting as though it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. It screeched, a sound like grinding metal and static. "Well," Kalen said, "that's not friendly." "Understatement of the century," Vera replied, drawing her dagger. "We can't kill it, not directly." Kalen fired a few rounds anyway, the bullets passing through the creature like it was smoke. "Great, just great." "Keep it distracted," Vera said, sprinting toward a console. "I need to overload the sonic emitters. It might disrupt its form." Kalen ducked as the creature lashed out, a tendril of light narrowly missing his helmet. "Define distract. Talk to it. Maybe it likes your staring," she shouted over the noise. Kalen gritted his teeth. "Yeah, real funny." He dodged another strike, firing a useless volley. "How's that console coming?" "Almost there," Vera replied, fingers flying over the controls. 3, 2, 1. A wave of sound blasted through the chamber, an unearthly screech that made Kalen's teeth ache. The creature writhed, its form breaking apart before dissipating into thin air. Kalen collapsed against the wall, panting. "I hate this station." Vera walked over, smirking despite the tension. "You did well, even if your aim was about as effective as throwing pebbles." "Thanks for the pep talk," Kalen muttered. "Next time you distract the shape-shifting murder light." She tilted her head. "Next time, I'll let it stare at you instead." Kalen rolled his eyes, but he couldn't hide the grin tugging at his lips. Deal. Kalen had no idea when his life had turned into a series of bad decisions punctuated by near-death experiences, but here they were again, standing on a catwalk over the unstable hyperspace core, alarms blaring like the station was trying to scream itself apart. Roth's voice was buzzing in his ear through comms, yelling something about how the reactor was seconds away from spitting them all into another dimension. Kalen didn't know if that was true, but given their luck, it sounded about right. Vera crouched beside the control panel, fingers flying over the cracked surface as streams of alien script scrolled across the display. Her long ears twitched like antennae as she muttered calculations that made Kalen's brain ache. If I can reroute the energy into the secondary coils, we might have a chance, she said. Might? Kalen asked, raising his rifle as another drone zipped out of a nearby hatch. Define might. 50-50, she replied, slicing the drone out of the air with a quick swipe of her plasma dagger. You like those odds, don't you? Sure, Kalen muttered, firing at another incoming drone. I always wanted my obituary to say, died during a coin toss. The catwalk shook as the core below them flared with unstable energy. Blue arcs of lightning shot across the chamber, forcing Kalen to duck. This thing's going to blow, he shouted. Not if you keep them off me, Vera said, calm despite the chaos. I just need a few minutes. Kalen glanced at her, his pulse racing, not from the battle, but from the way she looked entirely unfazed, like she was dancing on the edge of a collapsing star and enjoying it. It wasn't just admiration, it was something heavier, something that made his chest tighten. He wanted to say something, anything, but the words stuck in his throat. Another explosion rocked the platform, and Kalen stumbled. Vera, he began, but the core let out a deafening roar, cutting him off. Dren's voice crackled over the comms. We need that core stable now, or we're abandoning the station. Vera didn't look up. Then you'd better stop talking and start shooting, human. Kalen gritted his teeth, taking down another drone. I'm trying, but they just keep coming. He fired until the rifle overheated, smoke curling from its barrel. Why are there so many of them? It's like the station's angry at us. Maybe it doesn't like being stared at, Vera quipped, smirking even as she worked. Kalen froze for half a second, heart thudding. You did not just say that. I did, she replied, not missing a beat. Maybe your gaze has infected the security system. Unbelievable, he muttered, but he couldn't help grinning despite the chaos. The grin faded when the catwalk buckled under a sudden jolt. A chunk of the railing snapped off, tumbling into the glowing core below. Kalen grabbed the nearest support, his heart hammering. This whole place is falling apart. Then hold on, Vera said, leaping to another console on the far end of the platform. She was quick, but the jump left her dangling from a loose cable, her boots scraping against the side. Kalen's stomach dropped. Vera. I'm fine, she said, pulling herself up, but Kalen could hear the strain in her voice. Another tremor rattled the catwalk, and without thinking, he dropped his rifle and lunged across the gap, grabbing her arm just as a section of the platform gave way beneath them. The world narrowed to just the two of them, her wide silver eyes, his grip on her arm, and the swirling chaos below. Why do you keep doing that? She asked softly, breathless. Risking yourself like this. He hesitated, words choking him again. Maybe it was the near-death adrenaline, or maybe it was the fact that they were seconds away from being turned into space dust, but the truth slipped out before he could stop it. Because I like you, all right. The words hung in the air like a live wire sparking between them. Vera blinked, caught off guard. You, what? I said I like you. Kalen shouted over the noise, face burning. I've been staring because I'm an idiot who didn't know how to say it. For a moment, the chaos seemed to pause, the alarms and drones fading into the background as Vera stared at him. Not with annoyance this time, but with something softer, almost amused. Then she laughed, a bright sound that startled him as much as his own confession. Human, your timing is terrible. Yeah, well, I'm not great with words under pressure. He yelled, pulling her to safety. Before either of them could say more, A massive explosion rocked the core chamber, sending shockwaves through the station. The blast doors began to close automatically, trapping them inside. "Not good," Roft shouted over comms. "The failsafe is kicking in. You've got 30 seconds before that chamber seals like a coffin." "Go," Vera said, grabbing Kaelin's wrist. "We're not dying here." They sprinted down the catwalk as the core spat arcs of unstable energy around them. Kaelin nearly slipped on a loose panel, but Vera yanked him forward. "Don't you dare fall now," she said, half laughing, half panicked. "Not a great time to joke." He shot back, but there was a grin on his face even as they dove through the blast doors just before they sealed shut. On the other side, they collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. Roft ran up wide-eyed. "You two almost became toast. What the hell were you doing back there?" "Saving your sorry hide," Kaelin said, still catching his breath. "And apparently confessing feelings," Vera added with a smirk. Kaelin groaned, covering his face. "You heard that?" "Oh, everyone heard that," Roft said, grinning. "Even the core probably heard it." Vera leaned closer, her voice soft enough that only Kaelin could hear. "You know, I don't hate that you said it." Her ears twitched slightly, almost shyly. "But let's survive this station before we talk about it again." Kaelin looked at her, heart still pounding, and managed a lopsided smile. "Deal." The lights flickered ominously, as if reminding them that the danger was far from over. "We're not done," Dren's voice came through the comms. "Get ready for the next move. Whatever's powering that core isn't finished with us yet." Kaelin exchanged a look with Vera. She smiled faintly, and despite everything, the station, the explosions, the near-death confessions, he felt lighter than he had in years. The station's alarms had finally fallen silent, replaced by the low hum of emergency power and the occasional hiss of venting steam. Kaelin stood with his rifle lowered, chest still heaving from the sprint through collapsing corridors. His armor was scorched, his helmet cracked, but somehow, against every odd, they were alive. Vera stood beside him, brushing debris from her shoulder like she had just finished a casual training exercise rather than surviving a catastrophic reactor meltdown. "Well," Roft said, leaning against the bulkhead and gulping water like a man dying of thirst, "I don't know about you, but I'm adding survived alien ghost station of doom to my resume." "You don't have a resume," Kaelin said, shaking his head. "Exactly. This'll be my first line. I'll make it bold." Roft grinned, then paused to give Kaelin a pointed look. "So, confession heard loud and clear. When's the wedding?" Kaelin groaned and rubbed his face. "I'm never going to live this down, am I?" "Not unless you erase my memory," Roft said. "And even then, I'd probably remember just to annoy you." Vera's soft laugh cut through the moment, a sound that made Kaelin's heart do a strange flip. "Ignore him," she said, her voice low but amused. "He's not wrong, though. You do stare at me like you're planning something." "Not planning," Kaelin said quickly, "just appreciating." Roft snorted. "Appreciating, that's what humans are calling it now." Before Kaelin could come up with a comeback, Dren's voice came through the comms. "Enough chatter. We've got a window to escape before this station decides to implode or teleport us into the sun. Everyone to the shuttle. Now." They moved as a unit through the winding corridors, past the wreckage of drones and sparking panels. Kaelin noticed how Vera kept pace beside him, her ears angled slightly toward him, as if she were listening for something he couldn't hear. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. There was something unspoken between them, something that hadn't been there before. Maybe it was the confession, maybe it was everything they'd just gone through, but Kaelin felt a quiet connection every time she looked at him. The shuttle came into view, battered but waiting like a loyal dog. Roft jogged ahead to prep the systems while Dren barked final orders. Kaelin hung back for a moment, watching as Vera inspected the damage along the docking hatch. "You're quiet," she said, glancing over at him. "Just thinking," he replied. "Dangerous habit for a human," she teased. "Yeah," he said with a faint smile. "But I was thinking you saved my life, more than once." "And you saved mine," she said, her voice softening. "We're even." "Not even," Kaelin said. I've been trying to find the right words, but I'm terrible at this. I know you didn't expect me to feel this way, but He stopped, swallowing hard. I meant what I said. Vera tilted her head, her expression unreadable at first. Then slowly she smiled. I know, I didn't expect it either, but I don't hate it. In fact, I think I might like having a human who stares too much. Kaelin blinked. Was that a compliment? Don't push it, she said, laughing softly. Before the moment could deepen, Roft yelled from inside the shuttle. Lovebirds. Unless you want to get vaporized, we're leaving now. Kaelin and Vera exchanged a look, both trying not to laugh, before stepping aboard. As the shuttle lifted off, the station behind them groaned one final time and collapsed inward, the hyperspace core imploding into a burst of light that faded into the silent void. Good riddance, Roft said, leaning back in his seat. I'm never setting foot on a haunted research station again. Next mission better involve beaches and drinks. Not likely, Dren replied. Kaelin sat beside Vera, watching the stars streak past the viewport as they entered the jump corridor. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a quiet sense of accomplishment. They'd survived. Against all odds, they'd made it. Vera glanced at him. So what now? Kaelin shrugged, smiling. Now, I guess I keep staring at you until you tell me to stop. She raised a brow. And if I never tell you to stop, then I guess I'm the luckiest human in the galaxy. Vera laughed, the sound warm and genuine. We'll see about that. As the shuttle sped toward friendly space, Kaelin realized something had changed in him. He started this mission